In this video, we're talking about recent events about the CGC 9.9 pre-screen. And there's basically three recent events that have happened that I think I have a unique perspective on and something that I can add to the conversation. And the purpose of this video is to provide advice and guidance mostly for new collectors. I mean, there's a lot of seasoned collectors that watch this video that probably have additional input than to what I have, but I know that there is a large number of people that will be watching this video that just want to make sense of the situation and figure out how the heck should I respond to this whole CGC 9.9 pre-screen, how, buying 9.9s, things to watch out for, and some other, dealer perspective, because I'm a comic book dealer, that I have some unique insight on the whole situation. But before we hop too far into it, I want to remind you we have a monthly giveaway here on the YouTube channel. If you subscribe, comment, and like, you're entered to win a free slab each and every month. And if you sign up for the newsletter at brycecomics.com, you get entered to win a free slab as well. We're giving away a Star Wars #1 this month, and it's also where you get first access to new collections. I have some amazing collections on the way, and there's constantly new inventory coming through. Use code COLLECT10 for 10% off all in-stock items at brycecomics.com. We also have Whatnot Con coming up in April. There's a link in the description for $15 towards your first purchase on Whatnot. I'll have a bunch of stuff in the Buy It Now for $15, so if you're new, you can stop by and pick up a free book. We're going to have tons of giveaways, tons of $1 starts on slabs, special drops, and it's going to be a ton of fun for Whatnot Con this April. So the three recent events that have transpired, and I'm going to tie them all together and add some personal experience and input and some real life examples of books here that just kind of ties this whole thing together. The first thing that kind of cracked this wide open was the interview that West Coast Avengers and the 99 Newsstand did on the West Coast Avengers YouTube channel. I'll put a link down in the description to that and a timestamp to the part where they're talking about the 9.9 pre-screen, because that interview was actually about the reholder scandal, but there's this unexpected chunk in there about the 9.9 pre-screen. So that's what kind of blew this thing wide open and had people talking about the implications of a 9.9 pre-screen. That's the first event that happened. The second event more recently was a video that CGC themselves released about the difference between a 9.899 and a 10. And they confirmed a lot of stuff that I thought, and also a whole bunch of new information was brought to the public for the first time about how they do pre-screens for large submissions of the same book. It's important to notate that, because there is a difference between pre-screens for a large quantity of the same books versus how they grade vintage comics or other comics, all right? And we'll get more into that here in a sec. So that was the second thing. And then the third thing was a giant size X-Men #1. First ever, one of one on the census, a giant size X-Men #1 in a 9.9 that's come up for auction at Comic Link. And it's just some very interesting timing about that book with all this talk about the 9.9s. And all of a sudden we got one for a book that's been graded for decades. And there's, over 13,000 of them on the census. There's only about 250 or so 9.8s. And this is the first 9.9. It's just very interesting timing. And we're going to do some detective work about that situation. I'll give my thoughts and then tie it all together with some personal examples and end with some key takeaways, like what should you do going forward, some cautions and things like that. So I want to start with the West Coast Avengers interview with Matt Nelson and say that I had always thought that the reason CGC did not offer a 9.9 pre-screen was out of a courtesy to the customers to prevent them from wasting money, because CGC 9.9s and 10s were so elusive that if people were to submit them for a pre-screen for that, they're just all going to get rejected. It's just going to waste everybody's time and money. I was wrong. Matt Nelson admits in that video that the reason they don't do a 9.9 pre-screen is that they don't have the resources to adequately scrutinize the books and to see whether or not they're 9.9s or 10s. He admits in that interview that there are potentially 9.9s that are encapsulated in 9.8 cases because they went through a screening process where CGC did not have the resources to scrutinize them to see if they're any better than a 9.8. CGC's one job is to grade the collectible in the condition that it's in. And they admitted in this interview that they did not do the job that we pay them for. They admitted that they did not scrutinize the book to see whether or not it was a potential for a 9.9 because they don't have the resources available. CGC, in my opinion, should do whatever they need to do to their pricing structure, whatever they need to do to their resources, to their business structure to adequately grade the collectible in the condition that it's in. That if that means you need to charge, whatever you need to do, but don't tell me that I have submitted, as a dealer, thousands upon thousands of books that were never actually given a fair shot at a 9.9. And now you're going to open up potentially, Matt Nelson says in this interview that he's always wanted to do a 9.9 pre-screen. They have some other projects first, but they want to roll out a 9.9 pre-screen. So they're telling me that now I would have to resubmit the books that I already paid for them to grade in the condition that it's in to give it a shot at a 9.9 because now they have opened up their business structure so that they have the resources to do so. And he also alludes to the fact that it's probably going to cost more to do that because it takes them more time to scrutinize them. Now, I just take huge offense to that. I think it's unfortunate. It is what it is. He also mentions in that interview that they pay attention to market trends and that in the past, nobody ever cared about newsstands. And then all of a sudden, people started caring about newsstands, and so they adjusted to that. And so he alluded to the fact that in the past, is what he's implying, is in the past, people didn't really care about 9.9s or 10s because it was mostly vintage books. And now that there's this massive market for modern books, they kept this vintage book model and just never gave modern books the shot at a 9.9. So we have a bunch of 9.8s that are potentially 9.9s. Now, this is where the conspiracy theory part gets into it, and I will let you make your own decision. Personally, I don't think that this is a conspiracy theory on CGC's part. I don't think that they premeditated this years in advance. I think they're just reacting to the current situation. And it just so happens that they could potentially regrade millions of comics that they've already graded and charged people a fee and potentially open up regrading those millions of comics again when they open up a 9.9 pre-screen. Because what would happen is a bunch of people are going to think they're going to be blinded by desire with the rose-colored glasses and say, I have a bunch of 9.8s that I see nothing wrong with them, and they're going to resubmit them to CGC for a 9.9 pre-screen. The vast majority of them are going to get rejected because I don't think that they're just going to hand out 9.9s. So you're going to just get a whole bunch of rejection fees, and then you'll get the book back raw. And so if you want to get your 9.8 back because you cracked out a 9.8, you're going to have to resubmit it to be graded again. So cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. CGC just happens to be the ones who reap massive financial benefits from all of this. And again, I don't think that this was premeditated. I think if it was premeditated, there would be some pretty evil people. And Matt Nelson does not strike me as an evil person, okay? He just strikes me as somebody who responds to market situations as they come up. And I think that they just happen to be very well positioned to reap the benefits from this. We'll get back at the end of the video about my advice if they do open up a CGC 9.9 pre-screen, because at this point, they currently don't offer the 9.9 pre-screen. That brings us to the next part, which is this Giant Size X-Men #1 in a 9.9. Understand that this was not submitted as a pre-screen. This just was graded as a 9.9. So are we to believe that this is just very interesting timing and that this book, just happened to get a 9.9 around all of this talk about 9.9s? Let's dive into the computer, do some detective work, and you can decide for yourself. So here's the book that is now at auction at Comic Connect that has sparked the purpose of this video, and to dive a little deeper and see what's going on. It's the Giant Size X-Men #1. It's got the QES Quality Evaluation Service, which is a service I believe that's provided by Comic Connect that you can pay an extra fee to have them evaluate the book to see if it's exceptional. Interesting. I mean, it's already a 9.9. Does that mean this is a exceptional 9.9? I'm not sure. But there's some more interesting stuff about this. Let's dive a little bit deeper. So the way CGC submissions work is the last three numbers will always start with 001 to 025. The maximum number of books in a submission is 25. So the last three numbers will always be either 001, 002, 003, all the way up to 025, and then they start over with a new submission number. So this book is the sixth book in this submission. Now, the reason that I think that this is interesting is because it's just so, is this a coincidence that a 9.9 is graded after all of this talk about, a 9.9 pre-screen, after Matt Nelson admits in that interview that, they follow the trends of the market and they see that the market really cares about 9.9. So like all of a sudden we get this 9.9. It's a little bit suspect. And so I thought, well, what if there was like 25 giant size X-Men number ones that were submitted in this submission, and that's how it got the 9.9. That's not what happened here, but let's see what else was in this submission. So the submission, or the cert number here is 438-823-9006. So let's start at 9001 and see what this submitter also submitted in this submission, 823-9001. So this was the first book in the submission. If you look over here, as my computer's kind of slow, is an Amazing Spider-Man 129 in a 9.6. So there's also a bunch of grader's notes: left bottom front cover, small chip out, small spine stress lines, small wear. So I would assume that this whole submission was a resubmission, crack press resubmit of people trying to get those super high grades. This one's a 9.6. They were probably going for a 9.8. 438-823-9002. Let's see what the second book in the submission was. Marvel Comics. Okay, so this one just, super high value vintage comic. Subscription crease, full center of front, light creasing. So yeah, it was probably cracked out. There's only 3 in a 6.0 and 13 higher. So this is a really good grade for this book. Hopefully they got a bump. I'm rooting for them. I'm all about, improving the condition of these awesome collectibles. Here's a 9.6 white. Who knows what it was before? Or maybe this was submitted for the first time, but there's light spine stress lines that break color, and it got the 9.6. There's only 3 higher. Okay, that's a super good grade for this book. 438-823-9004. The fourth book in this submission was an X-Men 94. It came back a 9.8 off white to white. Very light spine stress lines, breaks color. So here's an example of where a 9.8 got notes and still achieved the 9.8. I would bet money that this was probably a 9.6 with the same notes or a 9.6 with no notes, and they looked at it and they thought, maybe we can get the 9.8. I mean, I'm not criticizing this process of CPR. I mean, if you're not CPRing books and you're serious about this hobby, you're leaving money on the table. That's not the point I'm trying to make here. I'm just trying to do a little detective work and see what's going on. So this one is interesting because it says the grader's notes have very light cover tanning. And so it makes me wonder if, they were successful in lightening the cover tanning. Maybe before, it had cover tanning to an extent that kept it from a 9.8, and they were able to, very gently use those restorative processes that are kind of tricky to lighten cover tanning. Maybe they did that, and that's what happened with this one. Who knows? I thought it would be interesting if I could find this exact copy, like compare the misrep. There's a little minor misrep here, and maybe I could find this book as a 9.6, and I was unable to do so because, maybe there's just not a picture on GPA when this book sold. Who knows? But this is a great grade for this book. That's number 5. And then we have 438-823-9006. Here's the 9.9. This is here's the 9.9 giant size X-Men. And as you can see, it's not available yet, so it just hasn't hit the census yet. 438-823-9007. So the 7th book in the submission was another giant size X-Men number 1. This one came back a 9.8 off white to white with no grader's note. So that's very interesting. I mean, they had 2 copies in here. The grader looked at them side by side, and, that might help explain why he was like, well, this one is way nicer than the other one, and the other one's 9.8, so I'm going to give it a 9.9. So it's totally possible. And then if we go to 438-823-9008, it says item cannot be found. So there was only 7 books in this submission. So another thing that's interesting about this book is that this case is, in my opinion, inadequate to protect and store this book. This book is able to move freely around a little, not freely, but there's a little bit of movement allowed for this book to move around. And right here on the inner well, this little divot right here, if this book is just gently tapped, it can like slide in there and cause a little bit of a bend here and right here. And if it moves to the right or to the left in the case, this book is notorious for having an overhang, which means that the cover is slightly larger than the interior pages. So if this book shifts a little, even just very gently tapping this, even under normal shipping conditions, if you ship this book through the mail, it can shift enough to where it bends the overhang. And then you have the question, is it still a 9.9? Well, I can tell you that with a bent overhang, it absolutely would not attain the 9.9 if it was regraded. But as long as it stays in the case and it says 9.9 on the label, the question is, do we care? And also, if it were to get re-holdered after, say, 20 years down the line and it's got a bunch of overhang bends and it's a 9.9 and you send it into CGC to be re-holdered, would they let it retain the 9.9? It's up to their discretion. It's their discretion. They could say, yep, it's still a 9.9, or they could say, nope, now it's a 9.6 or a 9.8. It's totally up to their discretion. They don't have a firm policy on that. It's just another human making a judgment call. So this book has a huge amount of risk for multiple reasons. Number one, it's the first 9.9, okay? And number two, it could get damaged in the case. So, we'll come back to this as to my advice or recommendations about all of this, the key takeaways from this. But also, I want to touch a little bit more with a personal example of, do we care if the book is not a 9.9 or a 10 inside the case, as long as it says it on the label? So that brings us to the third part of this video and the third recent event, which ties into the video that CGC released about how they grade, the same book that's submitted and the difference between a 9.8, 9.9, and a 10. And I want to answer the question of, do we care if the book inside the case is not matching the grade on the label? All right. So I think a lot of people criticized that video because they're like, well, obviously he's not spending enough time and he could give something a 9.9 or a 10 without even looking thoroughly at the book. And I have proof of that right here with my personal copy of Edge of Spider-Verse #1. I'll put up a picture on the screen. You can see on the back of this book, there is a significant miswrap. All right. And a miswrap is not allowed in a 9.9 or a 10. And here we have a 10 with a miswrap. Now, this book is in my personal collection, right? And I don't care. I don't care that it has a miswrap. On this particular book, I'm not going to send this back and say, hey, can you regrade this and give me a 9.8? This is, number 1 of 250 on the COA. I always keep one of my exclusives in the highest possible grade. And in this case, I care more about the label than the actual book inside. I don't know, it has to do with price point too. Okay. So this book is, definitely not in the tens of thousands of dollars. It's probably not even in the thousands of dollars. It's probably like $500 to $1,000 book. If I were to sell it, it's not for sale. It's in my personal collection. And I would just want to point out how I know that a miswrap is not allowed in 9.9 or 10 is this book that CGC released themselves, the official CGC guide to grading comics. It's a great resource. I suggest that you pick it up if you're serious about grading and stuff. And I want to look at the area of miswrap, and I'll put a picture of this actual page up on the screen so you can see what I'm reading. It says that the grade range for a miswrap is between a 9.0 and a 9.8. Now, let me give you an example. So you can't get any higher than a 9.8 with miswrap according to CGC's grading standards. Let me give you an example of a public sale of Amazing Spider-Man 361 in a 9.9, first appearance of Carnage. That book sold for, I think it was over $50,000. I hope that it wasn't on Comic Link. If it's on Comic Link, they don't have a public record. Might be able to find it on Go Collect, but I'm hoping I can find a picture of the actual sale. It was at the peak of the market. First appearance of Carnage 9.9 sold for $50,000, whereas the 9.8 at the time was selling for around $1,000. So about a 50x markup, huge money. And the book had a miswrap, right? And the thing is, it's a known manufacturing defect for that book, But they might, fall back on that as an excuse for why that book achieved a 9.9. It's like, oh yeah, it's a common thing for this book. But the fact is that not every single book in Amazing Spider-Man 361 has a misrap. I've seen plenty of 9.8s that don't have a misrap, that look perfect, right? And yet this one with a pretty significant misrap got a 9.9. They could possibly argue that with this book, that the entire print run, but I can confirm that no, not the entire print run of this had a misrap. I looked at a whole bunch of 9.8s that did not have a misrap. So they will always have that ability to fall back on the fact that they're the ones that are making this stuff up. Like, we are paying them for their opinion. We are paying them for their grading standards, and they can just make stuff up if they want. The next one I want to look at here is World Tree #1, and this is the Bryce Comics edition. This was also, this one came directly from Image Comics. It was limited to 100. I sent it directly to CGC from the printer, and they were able to label them on the label, the number out of 100. So this is my personal copy. It's a 10.0, numbered 1 out of 100. And one thing that's interesting, I'll put a picture of this up on the screen, is that over time, I noticed that this book developed some warping. Okay, now this is a completely separate conversation and topic, but something you should be aware of is that the books inside the case, they're not protected in here. Not protected to the point to where there's no possibility of damage. In fact, there's a high likelihood of damage because of elements and weather and whatnot. And of course, in handling and shipping, of course, CGC should never be responsible for people mishandling something after they grade it. Of course not. But I do think that the case should be adequate enough to protect it from standard conditions, normal shipping conditions, normal weather variations, like very minor stuff. Like, the case should be a little bit better. I'm not an engineer. I'm not going to make a new case, but they should put the money into it to protect the book. Because here, and I'll put up on the screen from the guide here, warping, it says the max grade is a 9.6, but then it also goes on to say in the text here that a light curl can still get a 9.8. And I know that, a modern book definitely can have some degree of warping and still get a 9.8, but certainly not a 9.9 or a 10. Now, at the time when they graded this book, I can bet money that the warping was not there. In fact, when I got the book back, I'm like, sweet, yeah, it's perfect. And then over time, I noticed the warping develop. So it begs the question, do we care? Do we care if the book inside the case is no longer the grade on the label? Because this is going to have a much bigger effect over time. I mean, CGC has only been around for a little over 20 years. What about 50 years from now, when these books have been around for 50 years? And we're talking about vintage books that start to disintegrate in the case. How are we going to tackle that as a community? Because it's definitely coming. I mean, these are paper, and especially when you're talking about golden age books, they're deteriorating, they're off-gassing, they're slowly decomposing, and at a certain point, it's not even going to be anywhere close to the grade on the label. So this brings me to the tips and takeaways for this video. Number one, the biggest takeaway for me is I would not recommend paying an absurd amount of money for a 9.9. I'm talking about a 50x increase on a vintage book like ASM 361 or this Giant Size X-Men #1 that's at auction. I would not recommend paying an absurd amount of money for two reasons. Number one, they're not protected in the case, right? And if you're going to make a big investment in something, don't you want peace of mind and surety that that investment is going to maintain the same condition? I mean, that's the number one reason of why I wouldn't pay huge money for 9.9. Number two is, with all of this talk about the 9.9 pre-screen, there's definitely the possibility that more 9.9s are going to hit the market. And you just don't want to be the first person to buy and pay that crazy price for a 9.9, okay? I'm not saying that, you don't ever do it. It's just don't be the first guy. And there's been a lot of talk of people wondering, how is this going to affect the price of 9.8s? And that's the second takeaway that I want to say here is that I don't think the 9.9 pre-screen, unless it has a massive impact on the census. I don't think that it's going to affect the prices of 9.8s too bad. All right, let's take Ultimate Fallout 4, for example. There's 0 9.9s on the census. That's probably a huge target book for this 9.9 pre-screen. A lot of people are going to want to get that 9.9, and a lot of people are going to want to be the first person to get that 9.9 because that first 9.9 inevitably is going to go for crazy money. I guarantee it. It's just human nature. And trust me, there will be an Ultimate Fallout 4 9.9. I would imagine that we're probably going to see one soon if I had to guess, if I'm speculating. So I think like the breaking point to where 9.9s on the census for a book like Ultimate Fallout 4 to affect the price of a 9.8, I think it would have to be like a huge number, like 25% of them. And I don't think that that is going to be the case for this, because let's remember that we are collectors and a lot of people want to keep that 9.9. Like that 9.9 Giant Size X-Men might go away for a long time and not resurface because we want the best, we covet the highest possible grade. So I don't think they're going to change hands that much. And I don't think it's going to affect the price of 9.8 unless they were so prevalently available, unless there were so many 9.9s available that the 9.9 price for an Ultimate Fallout 4 was like achievable and that it came up for sale often enough to where that's what people targeted. But if it's just a small percentage of Ultimate Fallout 4s that get the 9.9, it's not going to be something that the masses can target. If it's just a small percentage, the price is going to be so high that only an elite few are going to actually even be able to be contenders for it. And then it's not going to change hands enough to where people can be patient and target that. They're still going to target the 9.8. In fact, I think 9.9s might actually, boost 9.8 sales potentially because number one, it hits the news. It's at the top of everyone's feed. This Giant Size X-Men 9.9 is going to be all over social media. And the takeaway from that is not going to be a hit to the 9.8 price. It's not going to be a bunch of people saying, oh, I don't want the 9.8 anymore. I'm going for the one of one 9.9. No, it's going to have some massive, massive sale for the 9.9. And what we've seen before is that can often have trickle down effect for lower grades. People are going to say, wow, people are willing to spend that kind of money on a 9.9. Like maybe I should invest in 9.8. And there's also a possibility that a small amount of people will want to buy a 9.9 with the intent to crack it out and go for that 9.9. Like that's a very small number of people probably, but that's a possibility. I just don't see the effect of the 9.9 having an effect on the 9.8 price unless it was a massive amount of them. And time will tell. When they open up this pre-screen, that's when we'll find out for sure how many 9.9s are they going to give out? How frugal are they going to be with this? Like how is this all going to play out? We still don't know. So another big, huge takeaway and piece of advice that I would have is if CGC opens up a 9.9 pre-screen, because it still hasn't happened yet, I would not recommend cracking a bunch of 9.8s and going for that 9.9 pre-screen. I think it's going to be a waste of money until we see how it shakes out. But my advice is don't be blinded by desire. Don't just take all of your 9.8s and send them in for a 9.9 pre-screen, all right? You have to have a clear path to success if you're going to crack a book out. You have to have, be able to identify why you think that 9.8 is a 9.9. And if you don't have that level of expertise, save yourself the time and money and don't do it. The only reason you should do a 9.9 pre-screen is if you are incredibly well versed in the difference between the 9.8 and the 9.9, and you can see and articulate why you think that 9.8. So that's my advice here is don't do it unless you are experienced enough with grading to know that you actually have a shot at doing so. So that's it for this video. Sorry, it's kind of a long one, just a little bit of a rant. I don't have the ability to jump on the microphone every time like a new current event happens. And by the time I get a video up on something, there's already 10 other ones that I've already posted and people are already sick of it, because that's how this hobby goes, is that no matter what, I have seen any single controversial thing that has come up in comics, every single time people stop caring. Like it just blows over, you know? And so I'll never be able to just run to the mic, but I felt like on this particular situation with all of the 3 different events, like I did have something to contribute. And I just want to thank you for sticking with me to the end of the video. Don't forget, we have those giveaways here on the YouTube channel. Subscribe, comment, and like. Giveaway over at brycecomics.com if you sign up for the newsletter. Link in the description for Whatnot to get $15 towards your first purchase if you're new. We got Whatnot Con coming up. And yeah, thank you guys. Don't forget, tagline here.